afternoon, and welcome to the Final Destination Bloodlines panel. For the last 25 years, the Final Destination franchise has taken audiences on a terrifying journey through Death's design, exploring primal fears and unlocking new ones as they traumatize generations. And with Final Destination Bloodlines, they delivered the best installment yet. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yes, providing scares, laughs, and shocking kills in equal measure. Our guests today are ready to reveal how the movie got made, tell secrets from the set, and answer any questions that you might have about this critical and commercial smash. With that, I would like to introduce actor Teo Briones, actor Tinpo Lee, actor Rhea Kilstead, producer Sheila Hanahan Taylor, producer Craig Perry, co-director Adam Stein, and co-writer Lori Evans Taylor. Thank you all for being here.
Thank them for being here. Hey, everybody.
Yes, thank you. So 25 years of Final Destination means 25 years of fans being terrified of everyday things like tanning beds, roller coasters, and trucks with logs or pipes or anything that could impale your car while you're driving down the highway. So Rhea, I'm going to start with you with the light one, just to get us warmed up. So now that you're part of this Final Destination legacy, what's the one everyday object or situation that you'll never look at the same way again?
Don't say panels.
Or MRI machines, that's not every day. The one everyday object, well, if I had a lawn, I would say a lawnmower.
Yes, that's a good one.
You know, every time I look at my blender now, I wonder about a shard of glass in it. That's actually my honest answer.
Me too. What about you, Teo?
Honestly, what isn't scary out there in the world? I'm terrified of everything, but MRI machines I'll never look at the same way now. Yeah, piercings, MRI machines, oh my God.
Yes, everything, yes, I agree. I am always...
Since I started working on this movie, my wedding ring always feels very, I get a little bit, sometimes it feels a little tight.
I have changed mine to be silicone, just in case.
That's funny. So Tinpo, did stepping into this franchise make you more superstitious?
100%.
Yep.
I now pretty much walk down the street looking around for things that could come.
As do I, yes. Anybody else more superstitious now?
Well, Sheila and I have been working on this for almost 30 years, and the threat matrix that we both experience walking into any room, we just... And do the math. What's going to take us out?
It changes everything, and then what we also secretly love is every time we make another one, we have a whole group of crew who about a week after we start pre-production walk in and go, okay, everything has changed in my life. I can't do anything normal anymore. I always am looking for ways people are going to die or the way I can kill somebody with my department. So it just really infuses everybody who works on these franchises permanently.
You also have people sending you snuff films all the time.
Yeah, my inbox is like a crime scene. They're like, look at this death. I'm like, I don't want you. Oh, that's good. I like that one.
Yeah, that's true.
I think no matter what, these movies have changed all of us. I think that's the magic of this series. Whether you had seen them, I hadn't seen any of them before I got this. And then you start watching them, and it really has changed with humor and horror, how we all look at everyday objects, and that is kind of the beauty and the real charm of them, I think.
I would argue that's why everyone else is here, because there's a certain thing that you can identify with moments in all of these set pieces that having been there, know someone who's had a close call, or hell, just driven behind a log truck and you feel like you are in your own Final Destination movie.
That's exactly right. I feel the same way y'all do, as a true fan.
And you flew here. You're welcome.
I
Very
did.
brave, very brave.
And I was looking at the screws in the plane as I was getting on it. So
And
yes,
changed as well.
yes, and that's every room I walk into. Yes. All right. So every fan has that one death scene that will be stuck in their head forever. Mine is actually Howard's from Bloodlines. That whole backyard scene is just absolutely brilliant. I don't even know how y'all came up with that. But Taya, before joining this film, was there a Final Destination death scene that haunted you personally, that made you nervous for your own death scene?
I mean, the pool section one, is that the fourth movie? Yeah, that one's pretty awful. I don't like pools as much as I used to.
You no longer swim?
I swim cautiously.
Cautiously. I understand. Rhea, what about you?
I went through a phase in my life where I was really scared of flying before I had seen these movies, before I knew they existed. So I'm just acknowledging that I'm so glad that I recovered from that before I saw these movies, because I actually think that would have fucked me up. I'm so sorry for not saying that. That would have complicated my travel plans.
For sure. So a follow up to that. So Tempo, who do you think had the best death scene in Bloodlines? I know it's a tough question.
Richard by far had the
Who was
best.
it? Who'd you say?
Richard?
Oh,
In the MRI.
Yeah, the MRI machine was terrifying and gruesome and hilarious and awful.
Can I add on to that, Timbo? One of the things about the MRI scene, which Adam and Zach came up with, is what exactly the image would be as you're shooting down the barrel of the MRI. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, when his stomach is in the tunnel of the MRI and getting pierced by all the metal bits, and he's getting extruded through the MRI. As we were storyboarding that, we realized, oh wow, this is the perfect opportunity for an Easter egg to the Final Destination 5 poster. I don't know how many of you recognize that. Oh yeah, some hands are up. You know, just the rebar that's coming through the skull in the Final Destination 5 poster. We made sure all the pieces of metal coming through Eric in the MRI were placed in exactly the same spot. And that's the whole reason he has a skull tattoo on his abdomen, is for that moment.
There was an idea that we were able to reverse engineer all the way back to him getting time in the chair, getting the tattoo. But there's a lot of things in the movies, I think, in the movie, there's a lot of fun Easter eggs that we'll tell you about perhaps down the road, but you'll have fun finding out when you watch the movie again and again and again.
Sick minds, all of you.
so Lori, did you write that scene? Oh, yes, give me a mic. Did you write that scene, the MRI scene?
Yes.
So
Yes, I did. It was a fun one. I think that was my favorite death scene to write in the movie. For
Well,
sure.
what was your inspiration for that scene? Did you have one?
Well, we always try to think about things in life that are incredibly dangerous, and we were just thinking about the MRI scene and thought, how has it not been a part of a Final Destination movie yet? And it's one of those great things you can ruin, and I feel like, especially over the summer, there have been so many people have come up to us saying, oh my God, I will never look at that MRI machine the same way. And I think a lot of techs appreciate us though, because now nobody goes in with metal of any kind because they don't want to end up like poor Eric.
Yeah.
You should still get your necessary medical imaging. it's safe enough. Don't delay your necessary medical procedures.
I'm not sure about that. Maybe an open MRI would be a little safer, maybe. All right, so this question is for the actor. So chemistry obviously can make or break any movie, any horror film, especially when characters are facing death together. So was there a moment on set where you all realized we actually feel like a family? Like it clicked and we're locked in and we're a real family?
Obviously when you're shooting movies, or not maybe obviously, but you shoot out of order, right? So you never have time to, let's say, develop a relationship chronologically through time. So my first day on set was the funeral scene. And which is a very weird place to come in, kind of at the end of a story. And it was a fantastic location. We were in a cemetery. It's cloudy and rainy and dark and so moody. And I remember coming onto that set the first day and meeting everybody. And my goodness, the chemistry was incredible. And I'm not just saying this, the family dynamic was instantaneous. And I think that's a testament to like the casting process and what these guys do, like leading up to the production, is they're finding people who fit together emotionally, temperature-wise, vibe-wise. And I will say, Rhea and I had our first, it was pretty much the first scene. You were just showing up, and wow, we literally didn't talk before we started rolling. And this is a testament, one, to casting, and then also to Rhea's strength as an actress. But I didn't have to do anything. She showed up, I looked in her face, and it was like the story was already there. And I think that for me was a really, really great moment in the making of this movie.
Chemistry is such a funny thing on set. I mean, producers and directors can do everything that they think, particularly in our world now where when I used to audition, you used to have chemistry reads. You used to all get in a room and I would read with you, and Teo and I would read, do these people work? How does it feel to have them sit together? That almost never happens now. It's really rare, and it's unfortunate. But so you guys are casting us, also not having met most of us in person. So, the difference between you're on Zoom with somebody and you actually then meet them for a coffee and you get to shake their hand and look in their eyes and it's a totally different experience. So it makes the chemistry piece of it really tricky, and it's always unknown anyway on a film set. But I gauge movies, or my experience in movies, based on who I take with me into my real life after movies. And this is one of those amazing jobs where I'm still in touch with a huge amount of the cast. There's still a text thread. We still talk to these, that's a blessing. And to me, that just makes, and the fact that the movie also worked. Sometimes that happens and the movie is awful, but you still get to take that with you. This kind of has all of the pieces.
Something else
or whatever.
Before we even started filming, that's when it really felt like a family for me, because we got to do rehearsals before we started filming, which is, again, also very, very rare. And the chemistry was just right away. We all fit together like a puzzle piece. It was perfect. It felt so natural, and yeah, I didn't have to try to have chemistry with anyone. We all just
And
played off each other
just
so
to
well.
clarify, I think the thing that also people expect is when they say they did rehearsals, it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to actually practice the scene the way we wrote it. People wanted them to feel like a family, so they all started sharing real stories, like, oh, I have this crazy aunt, I have this cousin who does this, I have this roommate who was this. So by sharing real stories, they actually got to be more vulnerable as humans, which is how you bond in a much more efficient, quick way.
Well, and that goes, I mean, I will just say, and I've said this to all of them many times before, it is such a privilege and so incredibly generous what you guys granted, all of you, us as actors, to have. We had a week, a whole week to read, play, talk, share stories, get to know each other, and that builds a lot of history.
I love that. In my opinion, there's nothing worse when specifically people that are supposed to be in a family act like they don't belong in the family. Like it messes the entire film up. So the chemistry was amazing in this film. Tenpo, this is for you. Who was the biggest prankster or morale booster when things got a little heavy on set?
Prankster, I wouldn't describe him necessarily as a prankster, but Richard is such a big personality and so unique. If things got at all, and they really didn't, but you could always, you could always go to Richard and just look at him and he would be doing something thoroughly entertaining. So
It's also Richard and Owen together were such misfits.
Oh, yeah. The two brothers.
And if they were together and you were near enough to listen to the quiet banter that went back and forth, you could barely keep it together. Like the two of them together are such an unusual, fabulous duo.
I remember the scene where Eric learns that his dad isn't his dad. We had Richard, he storms out of the room, and if you guys have seen the movie, he says, is that why he always wanted to play catch? And he left the room. But when he did that, we had him do different versions where he kept coming up with new things to shout at the family as he left the room. And you guys had a hard time keeping it together. You were like seriously cracking up every time. Even then it started to be before he left the room. You would start laughing because you knew he was about to say something funny. That was pretty good.
I love that. And y'all all were shaking your head when he said Richard. So I know that, yeah. All right, so I know fans love to hear behind the scenes secrets and stories about scenes that might not have made it into the final cut or may have gotten changed at the last minute. So Adam, I wanted to ask you, what's a storyline that had been written and you wished it could have stayed in, but ultimately it had to go?
Wow. I don't think there's anything that I wished would have stayed in. I think there were a lot of different versions over the years that we were working on this movie together to try to always be making it better, always be making it better, always be making it better. And there was actually one very significant difference in what we originally filmed from what's in the finished movie, which is the way that Rhea's character Darlene originally died in a different way than what's in the movie. And it was
right outside the hospital.
Yeah.
So it was really 3 deaths close together.
Yeah. So what happened in the original, first attempt of filming was that the MRI death happened to 2 brothers. There was a brief scene in the hospital lobby, and Darlene gets the book and said, "I'm gonna go live at Mom's cabin," and then died, boom, right outside the hospital door. And when we first did the cut of the movie and started sharing it with a couple of small audiences and stuff, the feeling was that really was disappointing because we wanted Darlene to really do something to help her kids and to really have a chance to come into her own and be a strong mom for these kids that she hasn't been there for all these years.
Well, you guys did a good job having the rapprochement between mother and daughter working. It was actually working, and then to pinch it off in such a very fast way did a disservice to the work that they've done to get to that place where the audience wanted to see them reconnect, and by virtue of you being a better mom, do something to show that. So it was
so we came up with this new way of having Darlene get into the RV with them, go to the cabin, almost make it inside, and then she gets burned in the front and the telephone pole. All that stuff was a reshoot. 3 months, 6 months after the original shoot, and using very clever sort of techniques made it all fit in. But it made it a lot more satisfying to have Darlene like do something to, you know, save her kids' lives, basically.
I'm in complete agreement with that. I mean, I can't imagine it any other way. There was so much bonding that happened with that. So I can't imagine.
Well, I'll go backwards even further. In earlier drafts, it wasn't Darlene, it was Dale. It was her dad who had gone. And there were a lot of things that weren't quite gelling with the script. Actually, why don't you talk about the problems that we had keeping that together and where the decision came to maybe make a gender swap and how that impacted the ultimate story?
Absolutely. So originally it was Stephanie and Charlie, and it was their mother and their father, but the father, Dale, was the one who was estranged from the family. And then as we were doing rewrites, it was actually you guys. He said, well, what do you think about changing Dale to the mother character? Then we have 3 generations of women, Iris, Darlene, and Stephanie. And so it's these reflections of each other. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a fantastic idea. And then I was really terrified because in Final Destination movies, you don't have a whole lot of real estate emotionally. And we were really concerned because a mother leaving her family, you have to justify a little bit more than father.
It's very different.
Yeah, sadly, a lot of men leave families, but very few moms leave families. So luckily we were able to have that wonderful scene in the RV where Darlene can talk to Stephanie and really tell her where she's coming from. And I think it really sort of brought an extra level to the movie. I think it was a great, one of those changes you make during the writing process and the pre-production process that works out really well.
And kind of any other little issues that seemed to be percolating, the script is dissipated once you had that through line that made sense emotionally.
All right, so a lot of sequels kind of
Suck.
lose. What did you say? Okay, yes. So a lot of sequels in horror kind of lose steam. I'll say it different, Craig. Or miss what made the first one special. But with Final Destination, it feels like every film somehow raises the bar without losing that signature identity that the fans expect. And that's not easy. I don't know firsthand, but I would imagine that that's not an easy thing to pull off. So, Craig or Sheila, since you've been a producer on all 6 films, when you set out to make Bloodlines, what was the moment you realized this is the idea that will top everything that came before?
Well,
Wait, I'm going to warm it up. So I would say one of the reasons that the continuity and the satisfaction has worked for all 6 is because Craig has really been there for every minute of every second of every of this.
This is why I look so old.
This is why he looks so old. But it's truly his gift to the fans is to listen to them and to know what makes them happy and satisfied, and stay true to that whenever we sit down to work on one of these. So he is caring for the fans almost more than any other thing in this process. And then with that, how did you know number 6 was going to be number 6?
Well, we had a bunch of fits and starts. It's not like we waited 14 years on purpose. There was an opportunity to do a version that didn't quite make it because of a lot of internal politics at the studio. And when we wound up getting an incoming call from John Watts, who directed the last 3 Spider-Man movies, and he said, well, how about, I've always loved this franchise. I learned how to make movies watching the behind the scenes, and hey, I know you from somewhere. He had the idea about making it about a family. And we talked about doing family stuff before, but one of the concerns we had was if you have a family and people are dying off after a premonition, the movies aren't that much fun. Because when your family members are dying, you need room to grieve. And suddenly, if they're not grieving enough, they're monsters, so we don't care about them. It was this like round robin of challenge with tone. But John's secret sauce was to have it start in the past and jump to the present. So the mystery was, how is it related to what we found in the past? And how is the family that we are introduced to going to be impacted in the present? That one hiccup really gave us a lot of latitude, and I think really made it a procedural thing, an emotionally procedural movie that allowed for all the things that we needed. In terms of set pieces, in terms of relationship, and most importantly in terms of empathy. Because it was a family, we all have families, we all have brothers, cousins, and the like. We could immediately understand the relationships very quickly. And with the actors that we got and the chemistry that they brought to bear, that's, I think, why the movie worked, is that we had a degree of empathy that was unlike anything we've ever seen, and we took the rules of Final Destination and elasticized them just a little bit so that it wasn't what you expected. And as we are now trying to get 7 off the ground, those are the questions we're asking ourselves, which is how can we keep the franchise lore in place, but build off of it? How can we find ways that we can emotionally connect without undermining the issue of tone, which I think both Sheila and Adam can speak to is really hard to pull off. The tone of these movies is really challenging. But that is what made this difference, is John coming with just the same room, but a slightly different door. And then here we are in front of all you lovely people.
So Lori, was there ever a point where you looked at an idea that you had written and you thought, maybe I've gone too far with this, I need to pull it back just a little bit?
No.
I didn't think so.
I think the question is, how can you push it more? And that was the thing, it's the beauty of this group here, is the collaboration, because when Guy and I are working on the script, or we'd be working on these set pieces, we'd come up with this blueprint and have a lot of fun with it, and then from there we start talking, and everybody's mind and creativity, we take a look at the scene and see how we can continue to plus it even more. And so that's the fun of Final Destination. I think the further you push it, the more fun it is, as long as it's still anchored in humanity, right?
Well, there was one sequence that we did get rejected, and it was for the 5th one when he goes into the spa and he gets the acupuncture. Originally, he didn't die by fire or a Buddha. He was getting a colonic, and it reversed, and he exploded in a geyser of shit and meat all over the people who had walked into the room. And the studio read it like, interesting. Hell no. No. Bad dog. And so that is the one out of 30 years almost, the one that we well, maybe I would call it the one that got away.
I think they're right.
You should go out and just shoot that scene, just for fun.
Just another Thursday.
I think everyone here wants to see that.
One thing that was really interesting from my perspective, working with New Line, who people who paid for the movie, is that they're very focused on making a movie that works for the audience, which was really cool, because a lot of times in the Hollywood system, you have sort of executives who are like, just have an opinion, and they're like, oh, I like this, or I don't like this, and it's their opinion that you're sort of having to cater to. But New Line is a bit different. It's not about their opinion, it's about, does it work for the audience? So one thing that was really cool to see was, as we were editing, we put in tons of, gore and different dark stuff in there. And they were like, yeah, let's see if it works. And then when we tested it, they, in these little test screenings, they asked the audience, like, how was the gore? Was it too much? Was it not enough? And everyone in the audience was basically like, more! So then it was great. We got to not only keep everything that we had, but when we did those reshoots that I mentioned, we actually went back and shot little extra bits of more stuff to put in.
But what's the one more in the slide?
Yeah, so for example, they're in the scene where, in the sky view, where they're sliding down the ramp towards the windows. That was always a very cool, epic, dramatic moment. But we realized there was nothing in there that made you go, ugh, and cringe. And so we had this idea to film a pair of legs snapping. Do you guys remember that shot? So, and we just had it looked really ridiculous when we were shooting.
It looked like Miss Piggy's legs.
It looked basically like there were these a foam set of legs on a bar, wearing high heels and stuff. And it looked totally ridiculous as they were walking around with it, and everyone looking at it goes, that's so silly.
Every
That's
department
never
was
gonna
like,
work.
yeah, that looks terrible. They were
But
like, that.
as you frame it up, and we did it probably 50 times, snapping in different directions, different timing. And
Sound
you just
effects.
pick the right 9 frames with the sound effect, and everyone in the theater cringes and reacts in that moment. So that's just an example of like constantly the team together,
What Laura
constantly
was saying,
plussing it up to make it better and better and better throughout the whole process.
So, on that, one of the reasons Final Destination stands out from other horror franchises is how it blurs the line between movie magic and then things that could actually happen, right? So, fans leave the theater convinced that there are microwaves out to get them, right? So, Rhea, was there a death sequence in Bloodlines where even you had to stop and ask, wait, could this actually happen to me or someone?
All of them. I mean, I really truly think like where we started, that is the magic of this movie, is that, I accompanied a friend to an MRI 2 weeks ago, and I walked into the room and I started laughing. I was like, okay. You just don't think, and suddenly it's in front of you, and I think that's where this works.
Yeah, I mean,
everything.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know a specific answer.
No, I think that's the answer though, is we always come at it as if there's that 1% chance that this could happen to you. And that this thing could actually be deadly, even if it's like a marshmallow and the most harmless thing in the world. And we have the smartest crew who come in and interrogate it so that they can also help sell the credibility. They'll be like, well, the physics of this isn't gonna work, but if you do this one extra little thing, then the physics will work. Or if that zipper did this one extra little bit, then absolutely we can make it work. So it's everybody working together to make it credible enough that it can fall under freak accident.
Credible
we're good.
and plausible.
Yeah.
Just enough.
Freak accident, all
Okay,
good.
when people say, oh, there's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance that would happen, I'm like, exactly, that 1% chance is where Final Destination lives.
That's what we want, and we want to ruin that
And
one
it's
thing.
that moment where, I'm so sorry, I just jumped in. For example, Aria and her lovely family who are right across the table from us. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of the movie that she's in.
Weapons.
Thank you, Weapons. They flew here and came and told us that their daughter in the airport found a penny on the ground and picked it up and brought it over, and her mother was like, put that down. So it shifts everything.
Well, the MRI, a lot of people when the movie first came out, I saw some people like saying stuff like, can MRIs really do that? And then a couple weeks later, someone like died in MRI.
Yeah.
And everyone sent us the article about this person who got sucked into the MRI and got their neck, whatever. But the thing is, we had done the research before, while we were writing, and there had been, dozens and dozens and dozens of fatal disasters involving MRIs. So it was all based on real events that actually occur in the world.
I didn't know there were dozens and dozens. That doesn't make me feel great.
You guys know what the craziest thing, the most common way to die in an MRI is actually from police.
What?
Cops.
Yeah.
Because
That's great.
the cops will escort a prisoner to get an MRI, and they will inspect the patient for metal, but the cops won't take off their stuff. And they'll walk into the room while the patient's getting their MRI, and the gun will go off and suck the bullet into the MRI machine and kill the person.
No
That
way.
has happened multiple times.
Yeah, like the data is frightening, right? Yeah, exactly. So no, we always say like we research everything, and just when we think we maybe came up with a unique way to kill somebody, there's always a story. So it always happens in real life.
Even the pool scene is
Yeah.
based in real life.
Yeah, it's all true.
But not all scenes make it into the movies, though. This is the thing I want to ask Lori, like, talk about some of the sequences that were written in the early drafts that didn't make it to the final movie, that evolved going forward. And I think that's also interesting to show how much iteration goes into getting these movies right.
Yeah, there were definitely a few set pieces that changed. The biggest one was the opening, because originally the opening, it wasn't at the Skyview Tower. It was a riverboat in the 60s, and and so it was like a legal gambling operation, and then the Iris character was working that night, and there's still elements from it, but one of the things about the opening is you always try to decide on something that's a primal fear. Like you look at the thing, you go, oh shit, I know exactly like what that horror is. And with the riverboat, we're quite, questioning that, but also these guys, the biggest movie in the world, Titanic, right? How do you outdo Titanic? So that's when it became the Skyview.
Yeah, I mean, as we were thinking about each sequence, we kept going, okay, well, they could be in a hallway as the water is filling the hallway. It's like, they did that in Titanic. You can't do that. Like, we're just going to end up doing Titanic, except not as good.
And our movie had the catering budget for Titanic, so we're not going to outdo it.
And so, yeah, in talking about what else we could do, I have a fear of heights. So we were like, okay, what can we do with the fear of heights? And we collectively just had this idea of those kinds of towers that were built in the 60s, like the CN Tower in Toronto, like the Space Needle, like, a lot of cities have those sort of tower restaurants. And so that's where that idea came to be. And it was really fun, as someone with a fear of heights, to try to figure out how to create that in the audience as they're watching, how to make them feel that feeling of vertigo and feel like they're really there.
But there were other sequences too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
let's remember, like the MRI was always the MRI, wasn't it? But the RV was not. Well, no.
The VR. There was a death. Eric used to die.
Okay, Eric used to die. He was actually doing a VR video game and live streaming himself, and he was on one of those circular things that you can run while you're playing the game. And as he's talking, everything's catching on fire around him, and he can't really feel it or see it because he's got the VR on. He gets tangled up, and he winds up getting burned to death like a marionette. That didn't make it.
And then we had one that was the equivalent of a Chuck E. Cheese.
Howard's Happy House.
Howard's Happy House. So it was instead of the barbecue, which was an amazing sequence, but originally Howard owned this like Dave & Buster's / Chuck E. Cheese kind of place, and so we tried to ruin that, which was fun. We still, yes. Yeah, there what?
Yeah.
Did we add that in there?
Yeah, it was always
yeah.
there.
So that ended up moving to the barbecue, which is actually, it feels more like family anyway, and everybody knows what the family barbecue feels like, so I think it was perfect.
And Julia was like an influencer with like a pink truck that she wound up getting twisted into, and that John Watts said, I'm always afraid of garbage trucks. There's one outside my apartment every day in New York, and so we figured out how to work that in.
And the end of the movie was completely different. Originally, instead of the cabin exploding, Stephanie and Charlie go to the cabin, and Stephanie actually gets inside the cabin and locks Charlie out and says, now I'm going to live the rest of my life here to protect you. And then the movie ended. That was originally how the movie ended.
We wouldn't be here if that was the ending.
There was a big scene, emotional scene, where she's like, they were talking about how her life is going to suck now because she's trapped inside the cabin. And then the end. And it was sort of like that feeling of like, that makes sense, and it's nice that she's sacrificing for her brother, but it was a big downer. And so we wanted to, you leave the audience with a spring in their step and a smile on their face.
I think the reaction that everyone finished reading was like, that's some bullshit.
So on the flip side, Adam, which scene pushed the limits of what was even possible to bring to life on the camera?
Well, the sky view was technically very complicated, because once we decided to do a period restaurant 400 feet in the air, like how to actually do that was extremely complicated. Can't really do it in a real place, because even if you found a tower restaurant that you could redress to make it 60s, the view outside would all be modern. And we had so much fire, practical fire in the place, that basically we had to create a restaurant that was built out of basically concrete, because it had to be fireproof. And we ended up doing
100 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
Wow.
We ended up doing it with a volume screen out the window to do the view, because that was the most realistic way to do that and get all the reflections on the set and all the light coming in. But there was no volume stage that was big enough to have the set inside it. So it's very, very complicated. We ended up also having different sets for what we called the tilted set, which had the ramp, another set for the one that she's hanging off of with her ring, another setup for the underneath the dance floor that people were falling through. There was another set for the stairwell. So we had 6 different sets that were all in different stages that all had to feel like it was all the same place. So it was extremely complicated. It took a lot of planning with everyone on the team.
Well, he's being very humble because on his first day, he and Zach had 130 extras, fire. It was the most complicated first day I think I could not wish on anybody. But sadly, it came to you, and they did a great job managing. It was a very challenging situation.
Usually, Zach and I like to do simple stuff on the first day because the crew and the actors are all getting their sea legs. But it was our cinematographer, Christian, who was like, "No, you want to give them something beautiful to look at on the first day. Give them something spectacular." So we ended up shooting entering the restaurant.
I figured it was the opening, and that is my favorite opening of any Final Destination film. It is
That's high praise because
amazing.
the openings of all the Final Destination films are just spectacular.
Oh, right, they are, but this is my favorite. Just so you know.
Agreed.
So I want to shift for a second and talk about the late, great Tony Todd. So Tony's voice has been a sound of fate throughout the franchise, obviously. His presence is absolutely iconic, and I know you all agree. I know you all agree. So Sheila, specifically for you, when Tony stepped on the set for his final performance, how did the energy in the room change?
I mean, it was building that whole week, knowing he was coming into town, because he had to fly up from Los Angeles, and we were so excited and thrilled that he was still well enough that he could actually make the trip and bring Bloodworth to us one more time. And we all knew that he wasn't doing well, but the fact that he could make the trip. So the minute he arrived, it was beyond exciting. And we even had actors who weren't working that day come just because they wanted to see him and meet him and watch him do his work. So we had basically the whole group there. And we luckily had it was a smaller set, that morgue. So it was interestingly quite intimate. And there was crew that had worked with him before, so I think it was one of the best welcomes for any actor, let alone somebody like Tony, who was absolutely family. And just magical and heartbreaking all in one.
Right. I can't even imagine being on set for that. And this question is for anyone, because I want to give any of you an opportunity. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Well, I think we sort of, we all were very sort of sensitive to his physical situation and very worried about making it feel comfortable for him and all that. I think the most surprising...
Get the best experience possible.
Absolutely.
How could this be the best experience?
Well, I think the thing that was most surprising to me was how happy and joyful he was. Because we were all, is he going to be well enough? Does he really want to do this? And then he arrived and he was just full of smiles, so excited to be there, so excited to meet the other actors, really living that line that he says at the end where enjoy every minute, because that's what he was doing. He was just so excited to be acting that day. You could really feel that from him.
Remember he said if there's reshoots, we should all go to Aruba. He was hilarious about it. Yeah, he was hilarious.
Yeah, he was just, you could just tell that it meant so much to him to be there and to be acting with these guys and really bringing this character to life one more time.
We all have a special relationship, but I want to talk to the actors because you spent a lot more intimate time with him. What was it like to work with Tony on those last day?
He was just such a warm and inviting presence on the set. There was just an energy shift anytime he would step foot on set, and so knowledgeable and so much wisdom, and he obviously, I am such a huge fan of Tony Todd, and I have so much respect for him. And from the first moment that I met him, he treated me with the exact same reverence and respect that I had for him, and he made me feel really special. Like, Tony Todd is just one of the most amazing, kind, welcoming, warm people I've ever met in my entire life. And it was such a pleasure to be a part of his final performance. It means the world to me.
He was also so excited to have this film give the character a backstory. He's sort of relished over the years the different mysteries and explanations of the character. People have said, is he death? Is he an angel? And he sort of loved the mystery of that. But he was so excited by what Guy and Laurie had done with the script, giving his character a real human origin story that explained why he knows so much about death and sort of his history. When he was there, one of the things he was really excited to do was meet the actors playing his mom and his younger self. He was just so tickled by that. He was like, do I get to meet my mom today? And she wasn't working that day, but she came to set to meet him and take pictures with him and stuff, because he just was like so excited about that.
I can't think of a better way to sort of wrap up this part of it than to honor Tony Todd, but I think that we could probably open it up to questions from the audience. We got a little bit of time left. I'd love to hear from what you guys, if you have any questions that we can answer for you. Is there a mic runner, or shall we just... Okay, they're going to run one out for you. I believe it's the...
While we wait for the mic, do you want to show your show and tell, Craig? Because Craig brought a very exclusive look at a very important element of the film.
Craig, real quick, we didn't play the trailer. You
guys don't need to see the
you
trailer.
want to miss that? Okay.
JB found someone who survived. This is the hero prop from the actual movie. It actually exists. Movies are real.
So we're going to take some questions from y'all, and Giovanni's going to come around to whoever has questions, and he'll hand you the mic.
So I think there's a gentleman, second row over here was first up, hands. And if not, yell it out. I don't know where Giovanni is, but that's okay. Running out over here, second row, right over here. He's got his hand raised. He got his hand up. Yep.
Hey guys, thank you guys for being here. First of all, huge fan. I had a question for the writers. So over the years since it was announced, people were speculating about Kimberly Corman coming back, and there were rumors about her on set, like giving feedback, this and that. And I was wondering, were there any plans to bring back Kimberly Corman and Thomas Burke by any chance? And if they did come back, were there like a death scene? Was there like going to be a death scene for them by chance?
I'll never tell.
Well, one of the earlier drafts...
She was never on set, just to be clear. She was never on set.
I can't comment on the set stuff, but one of the earlier drafts, she was actually in the scene with Bloodworth. So we had them both, but we ended up pivoting and staying just with Bloodworth. But it's nice knowing that she's still around if we ever like to use her.
And nice knowing that you people are interested in what happened to her.
I will say, I just happen to be friends with AJ. Our sons play sports together, and I was talking to her about it, and she said she would be very excited.
She was nice enough to do some promos for us recently.
Well, she came to the premiere, and she was like, wait, I'm alive? Holy shit!
But it was fun. If you're watching on Instagram, she does a lot of Final Destination promos that she kindly did for us, which is nice.
Who else? Anyone else with a question here? Up, down, front row, woman in the gray.
I didn't realize you were going to do a 7. I thought this was wrapping it all up. So I'm just curious if part 7 will still tie in with the same story from the airplane crash.
again, under the cloak of silence, what we are trying to do is to honor the things that were successful in this movie, but also, like any movie, you want to make it work on its own and have sort of echoes and elements that the true fans can see, but it has to work sort of for the newbies as well. Let's just say that we are going to do our best to honor the lore, but give you something fresh and new.
Teo and I are really trying to convince them that some of the dead cast maybe should.
I think
You're like an Obi-Wan as a ghost?
And one of the things you guys have been very smart about doing in all the movies is you've never done like a reboot to like erase everything that's been done in the past and just do the movie again, which a lot of other franchises have done, where they've said like, oh, you know, now this is a remake of the original or something like that. I think these guys have been very smart at sort of building on everything that's come before in a way that updates, that makes having something fresh, but also honoring what came in the past.
It's a lot of work.
Question in the front row.
1, 2. Hi, we got one right here, and then I'll get to her.
Hi, I'm a big fan of the movies, but I have a question about the ending, because a lot of people like had mixed feelings about the ending, but I really liked it. Some people just thought it was really rushed, and what do you think that, what do you think about the ending, like, yourself?
Well, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone can have different opinions. I think what we were trying to go for throughout the whole movie is always making it feel surprising so that you don't know what's going to happen next. Because I think the hardest thing with the Final Destination movie is you know that death is coming for the characters, but you want to make sure it's not predictable. And it could become very predictable if you know what's going to happen. So basically, the challenge with the ending was as soon as you know that she didn't actually die under the water and that she's still on death's list, you kind of know that death's going to come for her.
We know where that train is headed.
So how do you do it in a way that's still fun and surprising? So we definitely went through a lot of different versions trying to figure that out. But that's why we came to what we ultimately came to, where you know she's going to die, and then she gets away from it, and then you think, oh, maybe she doesn't die. And then the logs, you know, which are a fan favorite character, come for her.
But there was discussion, to your point, about, well, what if we did a version where the logs hit, come to camera, and then we come out of her eye? Again, just outside of the house. The whole thing was a premonition, and she now has just a little bit of a head speed. But then we started to realize we're starting to wrap ourselves around the axle.
Yeah, we filmed that, and we tried it in the edit where, oh, it's a premonition. She didn't actually die with the train.
She has a chance to get away.
And she has a chance to get away, but then it felt like there was no ending. It was sort of like pulled out of her eye, and then the movie ended, and so there was a feeling of like, okay.
It didn't have a visceral impact, and whether you like it or not, I mean, a lot of people really got to love Teo and your characters. They didn't want to see them die, but the finality of it and the way it was the logs, always the goddamn logs, just felt so apropos. And that was actually a thing that we came up with in post. Our VFX supervisor said, well, what if we put logs in the back of the train? And we're like, that'll work. That'll work. And I also think it helps keep, one of the things that Adam and Zach really worked hard to do is keep the tone of fun, that it ends and then we go right to that song and you're going out of the theater with a real sort of rush of, holy shit, what did I just see? That was awesome. Yes?
Sorry about that. The mic's going out.
You're good.
Now, hold on.
Thank you so much, Jack. Guys, I was wondering, so the movie is infinitely rewatchable. I was wondering what advice you would have for how did you get the pace of the movie to this level, because it's absolutely perfect, it's very diverse in the mood, and it never gets boring. And if everybody could share your favorite scene of your character or overall, I would really appreciate it. And thank you.
Let's start with pace. The pace of the movie.
What was the question? The pace?
How did you get the pace to work so well?
I mean, I don't really know. It's sort of like a feeling, you know. You're watching it, you're trying to imagine as you're watching it in the edit that we haven't seen it before. So we're sitting there going, okay, as a first time viewer, how is this landing? How is this feeling? one of the actual biggest challenges in pace was the Skyview section, because it's quite a long opening sequence, and so we had a lot of discussions about whether the audience would feel like it was too long or too much in this opening, considering that we still have to meet the rest of the family that we haven't even met yet. And some of the early scenes of like them driving up and getting out and taking off the blindfold and walking in, and how much of it is a good suspense where the audience is leaning forward and starting to feel that feeling of dread and, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're going to go into that tower and all that stuff, and how much of it is too much, where you're feeling like, okay, get on with the story.
Get to the tower.
So that is really just, it's a question of like a personal emotional experience that you're having when you're watching in the editing room, feeling like this feels right. So it's a very subjective
to
thing.
your point earlier, that New Line likes to test it, and the audience will tell you when, and they'll let you know if it's feeling like it's a little bit slow or if it's too fast. So, Lori, I want to ask you a question. I'm going to hand you the mic. What was the hardest section to write that we kept going back to and back to and back to?
Act one. Because there are two starts to the movie. There's the opening sequence where we're getting to know Iris and Paul and this
and it's
wonderful.
Long, like
it's a long.
18
Yeah,
minutes.
it's about 18 minutes. So you're spending all this time, and then they die, and suddenly instead of coming out of the eye of Iris, you come out of the eye of Stephanie, and then the audience is like, whoa, who's this woman? And so then we have to basically hit a hard reset and introduce Stephanie. Yeah,
As the actor did the homework twice.
Yeah, and then so meeting Stephanie, her connection to this vision, this dream that she's having, and then go home where she meets her family. We have to meet all the family members. And so there are two movies in Act One. And so that really took a lot of massaging, how you keep it economical, but you enjoy these characters, you recognize these characters.
In terms of pace, that's actually the part we ended up cutting the most out of. In terms of like those scenes where Stephanie comes home and meets the family, those were the things we cut the most out of in the edit because of that. Because once you meet Stephanie, you need enough to know who everyone is and why you want to go on this journey with this character, but then you want to get to the cabin, to meet Grandma.
But I think that also informed how you shot the cousin scenes. You did it handheld. You wanted to make it feel like we were dropped right in, and it wasn't the endless setups, but just the camera's moving through and capturing people who are just existing and talking. And I thought that gave it a sense of liveliness that it wouldn't have had otherwise, to really help keep us going forward and make us connect with them very quickly.
Okay, we do have one more
That
question
was
for you guys too.
one of the things that I really enjoyed about the movie too, is because that's a really tough sequence, and because of these guys working with the actors and rehearsing and improvising, they had their own natural language, and I think you can really feel that in that first cousin scene where it's hard to write those scenes to feel that energy, and the actors really brought that energy. They brought something very special to that.
All right, we have one more question for you guys.
One more.
Hi, really great fan of the series. I was just curious, how early or late in the development process is the opening disaster actually scheduled? Because, obviously it's not as integral to the film as the rest of the deaths and the characters of it, but it's always one of my favorite parts of the film, just seeing everything happen. And I guess for the actors, were you sad you didn't get to participate in the opening disaster?
Well, in terms of the opening set pieces, we've banked a lot of possible ideas, and we've gone through a lot of them over the years, and we catalog them because we need to. If we're fortunate enough to make other movies, we want to have at least a sort of reservoir of opportunity.
We literally have a file called Freak Accidents and Opening Set Pieces.
You have to. So we actually come up with possible set pieces early, so we kind of know what feels right. And then we start to come up with who would be the most interesting person to die in that circumstance. And it's a weird way of kind of working backwards, but that opening set piece Laura was mentioning earlier, it's like that primal fear. It's not just a disaster, it has to be a very specific kind of disaster that can unfold. And then I didn't pick up the last part for the actors.
What kind of opening disaster would you have liked to be in? What kind of opening disaster would have liked to be in?
What's your opening disaster?
You know how badly we all wanted to get into period costumes and be in
It was
this
crazy.
opening
Everybody.
disaster? We begged. We literally were like, is there any way, what if we, come on, I just want to wear a sparkly dress from the 60s and walk through the back of the restaurant. We all wanted to be in this one.
You know, actually, fun fact. I don't know if I can say this, but Richard Harmon, who plays Eric, did dress up as a Belle.
We'll leave it where it is. If you look hard, you might find
I think you're not supposed
an
to share
Easter
that.
egg, and he just might be Jerry Fenberry's dad at that point. Yeah, Jerry Fenberry's. Yes, yeah. Maybe Jake, maybe Jake who was fired, perhaps. Well, we're out of time, I think.
We are out of time. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, let's give a big round of applause.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for coming out today. I really appreciate it.
So if you want to meet the panelists, just make your way over to this side, I believe, and they'll be over there waiting to meet you. And then also make sure you go and visit Teo, Ria, and Tempo at their booth. I don't have the number, but it's somewhere in this
Straight back there.
333? 333. And take some pictures. They'll sign some autographs, so make sure you do that one more time. Give them a big round of applause.